We begin with arguably the strongest superhero, Hulk, chained up in a spaceship destined for a distant planet. The Illuminati, Earth's mightiest heroes, feels guilty over the decision to send the Hulk to somewhere remote where there is no sentient life to hurt him. Otherwise, he could hurt. They feel they are left with no choice, for when the Hulk is overcome with rage, he becomes a force of destruction that no one can stand up against him. Enraged by the callous decision of the people he calls friends who seem to have given up on him, he breaks free from his chains and starts destroying the ship. With the ship's guidance system offline, the ship veers away from its destination, passes through a wormhole, and finds itself on the deserted planet of Sakaar. Still weakened from the crash, he is immediately attacked by a native race of insectoids and overwhelms him with their primitive weapons and numbers. During the battle, Imperial soldiers arrive and shoot Hulk with an obedience disc. The Imperial soldier claims that all debris of value that passes through the Great Portal is Imperial property. He tries to fight it off, but he gets jolted with fierce electricity that he later passes out. The Hulk later wakes up to find other prisoners: Korg, the Stone Man, Heroum, the Shadow Priest, Meek, the Insectoid, Lavin, the commander of the resistance group, Elo, a female resistance member. Commander Lavin brings the Hulk up to speed and explains that they have been sold as slaves to fight in the Colosseum as gladiators. Disgusted over the idea, the Hulk tries to break off his chains, when Lavin explains that the chains are unbreakable as they have been shadow forged. Lavin tries to rally the prisoners and decides on the team's formation, hoping it will help them win the fight. When the fight started, Hulk went straight for the gates, hoping he could pry it open, while the others tried to fight off their opponents, the Cronins, mighty stone men. As the Cronins emerge from the lava, Korg immediately recognizes them as his brothers and tries to reason with them. Like him, they are forced to fight and shown to have obedience discs on their chests. Lavin tried to convince Korg to fight them as they stood no chance by themselves, but one of the stone men stabbed Lavin from behind. Furious at the death of a comrade, Korg stood up to his brothers and wiped them out. When they thought they had won this round, the Colosseum's commentator introduced their next opponent, the Great Devil Corker. With its massive tentacles, it grabbed the gladiators and faced near defeat. The Hulk jumped into the air and smashed the creature with one punch. As the audience cheers for their victory, Hulk is not yet done, and he bares his hands toward the Red King, the crowned emperor of Sakaar. The Hulk jumps toward the king, but is pushed aside by Kyera, the Red King's attendant. As a show of respect for challenging the king, he faces the Hulk in his powered battle armor. When Hulk retaliated and wounded the king, Kyera stepped in and faced the Hulk while the king fired at him, knocking him unconscious. Under the pretense of saving the Hulk's life, the king intended to kill him in the arena after humiliating him in front of his people. Later that night, the other gladiators gathered around to pay their respect to Lavin for bringing them together and forge a deep bond between them in a ritual of warbound. To do so, they have to share their story with one another to understand each other more. Heroum begins the ceremony by telling his story. He was once a respected member of the Order of the Shadow Priests, when their conflicting beliefs tore them apart. Unlike Heroum, the other Shadow Priests strongly believe that the Red King is the prophesied Sakarsan, their savior. They explain that the action of the Red King speaks for itself, as he has rid evil and ended the Spike War. Heroum responds by saying that the Death's Head guards ended the war, and it was the same guards he used to oppress the kingdom. Heroum believes that when the real Sakarsan should arrive, only then will he herald its coming. Because of his decision, Heroum was stripped of his name, banished from the order, and cast into slavery. Korg continues the ritual by telling his story. Korg admits that the Cronins have been known to be plunderers of worlds, taking whatever they want from any planet. They came across Earth and decided to capture a native of the planet. Little did they know that what they caught was the mighty hero Thor. Thor tore through the wall of its cage and fought them hard. Left with no choice, they are forced to activate their warbot, a weapon of mass destruction used to fight armies. They thought Thor was finally defeated when Beta Ray Bill arrived to assist Thor. Together, they smashed the warbot with ease. The Cronins are forced to flee when Beta Ray Bill chases after them. Fearing they would not be able to outrun him, they pass through a wormhole, and that's when they find themselves in Sakaar. Elo tells how she is the daughter of ex-governor Ronan Kaifi, founder of the Resistance, while Miek explains he was exiled from his clan for hiding from a fight. The next day, the gladiators are triumphantly welcomed by the audience, especially the Hulk, who they refer to as the Saka Arson after his heroic victory against the great devil Corker. Facing them in the second round are the lethal marauders of the Chaline Plains, the Wildabots. As usual, the Hulk does whatever it wants and fights the Wildabots head-on while the others form a circle to defend themselves from blind spots. When their formation breaks, Hulk steps in and beats the remaining Wildabots. Like the previous round, they are faced with a second opponent, the Eggbreaker, the king of the Wildabots. Hulk struggled to approach it as it attacked with lasers. Enraged, it recklessly lunged at it when it swallowed him whole. When everyone thought it was over, the Hulk ripped it open and tore it apart from the inside, claiming victory for the gladiators. Later that night, Kyra wants to talk with the Hulk and brings him somewhere private. Kyra asked what the Hulk thought of the king, but when the Hulk called him a coward, Kyra drew her blade at him. Feeling that the Hulk only knew part of a story, she tells her story of how he first met the Red King. She claims she was still 13 years old when the spikes first appeared in her town. They did not know what to make of it back then, but when it started pouring parasitic creatures, it quickly spread by infecting every living creature it touched. Anyone infected gets turned into a rabid creature with no control of itself and attacks anything in its path, later called spikes. It was then that she realized that she was blessed with the powers of the Old Strong, which made her immune to its infection. It only took hours for the town to be overrun by these creatures. She was forced to cut down on family and friends to survive. With no one left and being the only survivor, she gave in to fate when the Red King and his Death's Head guards arrived to wipe out the remaining spikes. Although the king was still a boy back then, he still saved her, and she has since pledged her loyalty to him as his shadow. Kyra told Hulk the story, hoping he would at least see the king how she saw him, and accept her offer to let him escape with the Resistance under cover of night. Hulk worries that he still has the Obedience Disc, to which she explains he just needs to go beyond the mountains, and it will be out of reach to a place where it's peaceful, and he would no longer need to fight. Hulk refuses her offer, as it seems too good to be true, and decides to stay. Later, the prison gates open, and Resistance members assist their escape. Hulk tried to warn them, but Elo insisted on going. When the prison gates closed, they heard fighting from the other side, suggesting that the Imperial soldiers knew they were coming. The final day of their match has arrived, and the gladiators are pitted against the most notorious outlaw said to have nearly toppled the Crown City, Beta Ray Bill. It turns out that when Beta Ray Bill was chasing after the Cronins, he must have followed them through the wormhole. Beta Ray Bill quickly attacked them with a sonic blast, throwing the others against the wall. Heroum and Korg try to stand up to him, but both are defeated soon. Only the Hulk could stand up to him, and it wasn't long after that he overwhelmed Beta Ray Bill with his raging strength. Hulk threw a spear at him, shorting out the Obedience Disc, and freed him. The Hulk was still not done and continued punching him to the ground to near death when Heroum stopped him. With this victory, Hulk and the others have finally earned their freedom, but before they are freed, the king urges them to prove their loyalty to the Empire. Imperial soldiers bring out a tortured Elo and demand they kill her. Hulk refused his offer, and so did the others. Their decision has made them traitors, as the king claims they sympathize with the rebels and executes them on the spot. The king triggers the obedience devices on their chest when suddenly Beta Ray Bill stands up and sends a current on everyone to disarm the devices on their chest. He then throws his weapon to create a hole in the wall for their escape. Beta Ray Bill offers to take the Hulk home, but Hulk claims Earth is no longer his home. Meanwhile, the prisoners break free from their cages and attack the soldiers, while Hulk grabs the king by the throat, threatening him should he ever go after him and his friends. After making their escape, Ello suggests they follow the aqueducts to the mountain reservoir at Ansara. She claims Governor Churik is a friend and a supporter of the Resistance and guarantees their safety, but the Hulk decides to go on his own. At the castle, the king orders Kyera to hunt down the Hulk. She urges that it would be bad to leave the king's side at this time, but he orders her otherwise. Meanwhile, Ello and the others meet with the governor, leading them to a hideout. Meek hears something from a distance and decides to check it later when no one is looking. Meek later finds insectoids in captivity and offers to free them when they inform them that they are in danger. It turns out that the governor is a supporter of the king and reports that he has captured the escaped gladiators. Meek witnesses the governor talking to the king and confronts him. He kills the governor but loses an arm during the fight. He reports to the others, urging them to escape as Imperial soldiers will be on their way. Meanwhile, Kyera finds the Hulk on a deserted cliff and challenges him to a fair duel. When she thought the fight was over as she pierced his chest with her arms, Hulk stood up and recovered from his wounds. Kyera stood her ground against the Hulk when she noticed the ship carrying the spikes on its way to Ansara. She tries to reason with him to help her with the spikes, but he wants nothing but to continue their duel. When Kyera knocks the Hulk off balance, she gets on her pod and heads to Ansara to help its people. Hiroam and the others discover the town is attacked by spikes and help people to safety. They led them to a cave entrance and held their ground when Hulk arrived to stop the oncoming spikes on the bridge. Hulk is quickly overwhelmed by their numbers and turns into a spike. Kyera saved a child from the spikes and begged the king for reinforcements when he admitted he sent them. He claims that the spikes have been his greatest weapon as they had led him to find her, an old strong as a shadow. The king then orders her to leave as he plans on bombing the place to rid of the remaining spikes. Before they bombed the entire town, Hulk gathered enough strength to destroy the cave entrance and protect the others from the bomb. Helpless, Kyera carries the child in her arms as it slowly breaks apart after being burned alive. She finds Hulk knocked out and claims to the king that he is dead. Kyera and the Imperial soldiers return with Hulk and the prisoners awaiting the king's execution. When the king goes for a closer look at the supposed to be dead Hulk, he wakes up and sends the king flying with a punch. Kyera frees the prisoners, and they beat the Imperial soldiers while the Hulk focuses on the Red King. Not even the king's missiles or fire seems effective on the Hulk, so he activates and calls his Death's Head guards to his side. Hulk tears the king's battle armor apart and throws him to Kyera to decide his fate. She felt death would be too easy, so she grabbed one of the spikes and infected the king with it. As he retreats to his chambers, he comes across a few of the head guards who find him infected, and they terminate him as per their programming. With the fighting over, Kyera convinces Hulk to become their king, as everyone looks up to him as their savior. He worries that he may not be up to the task, given that even his former friends gave up on him, but Kyera assures him that they know him and welcome him. He is later accepted as the new king of Sakaar as thousands of its people clamor and cheer his name. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please be sure to check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you soon.